guys? Thank you for joining me. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching another episode of the Connected Podcast. I'm your host, John Rios. Today, I'm super excited to introduce my guest, Joseph Cerbone, Joe Cerbone of the New York Mover, one of my great friends. Joe has an amazing story of how he got to where he is in his entrepreneurial journey, and I'm excited to bring him to you guys today. Joe, thank you for being here, my brother. Appreciate you.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So, my brother, tell us about who you are, where you're from.
So, I'm ready to introduce this Joe Cerbone. I am the owner of the New York Mover, and also known as the New York Mover myself. And we are a local long-distance moving storage company. Our primary warehouse is in Yonkers, New York. We do moving across the country. We do all facets of the moving industry. So anything someone would need done when it pertains to move, from audio systems, installation, taking down TVs, putting them back up, junk removal, packing, local long distance storage, you name it, all parts taken care
Awesome. And I know you just said that your warehouse, or you're centrally located in Yonkers. Have you always been in Yonkers, or?
For the most part, we started out in Yonkers in 2007, and then we had expanded, we had grown under a different company. I say we, but not the New York Mover.
Okay.
We could get to that later.
Yeah.
But it was a previous business that I had, and we had expanded quite large and got a second location up in Rockland County, where we really had a huge warehouse. It's a 20,000 square foot warehouse with like 35, 40 foot ceilings, and we started with half the warehouse and ended up occupying almost the whole entire warehouse, and had trucks and everything down there. And then as things evolved and some things that happened in my life, we ended up closing that business, closing that location, and then the New York Mover started back up about four or 5 years ago.
So take me back to, first of all, how long have you been in the moving industry, period?
Since 2007.
Since 2007.
Yeah, so what is that?
So about
15 years?
15 years.
Yeah, 15.
All right.
Yeah.
So did you come in like as a mover, as a laborer, and like what was that like from the beginning?
Yeah, that's a pretty funny story. So I started out in the car business, right? I mean, I've been in sales all my life. So sales and marketing is something that comes very naturally to me, and I don't even see it a lot of times. It just apparently it does. I was doing quite well in the car business. Was making 6 figures a year selling cars, and got a great education there, from everything from credit and creditworthiness and what we call get-me-dones. And I'm sure they have in the real estate industry with somebody with not so good credit.
Mm-hmm.
Proof of income, proof of residency, all of that stuff. I became very familiar with underwriting and how the whole process works. I don't know how that relates to actually lifting a box or wrapping furniture, disassembling stuff, but I had a very good friend of mine that you may have known him, Louis Fideli. Steve Fideli, I know his names. I maybe mentioned any of the Yonkers guys. Yeah, Louis was a really good friend of mine growing up, and he would always say, "Don't trust my brother. Whatever you do, do not trust my brother." He loves his brother, of course, but he just, Steve had made a lot of mistakes, like we all had when we were younger, but I never experienced anything negative from Steve. I mean, I was a kid. He was a couple of years older than me. He was in jail for a while. He got home, very nice guy, funny guy, like personality, very personable and very quite possibly dangerous, but I never experienced any reason where I had any issues where I didn't like him or anything, And Louis would always say, just don't trust my brother, don't trust my brother. So his brother started working at a moving company called All My Sons when he got home from jail, because a lot of moving companies, that's what they do. They hire a lot of guys that get out of jail. Not necessarily over here, although we don't discriminate against anybody from getting out. Our primary workforce it's not comprised of people that are felons or criminals. No discrimination towards felons or criminals. We all made mistakes. So he was working there, and that's primarily what they had over there. I mean, it was like a jailhouse yard in the morning while they were waiting for the trucks to come out. They were shooting dice. Who was smoking weed, smoking cigarettes. This is like insanity. And but they were busy because at the time it was not like the internet. There was like a phone book. If you advertised in these yellow pages, these phone books that they had, you put a full page ad, your phone would ring.
Yeah.
Because that's what people would use to find out who to call. Google wasn't really a thing. It just started to be, but no one. So it was the yellow pages, the penny saver. So I think Steve was observing that, and he had a guy, blonde hair, blue eyed, nice guy, clean cut, Brian, that was working, I think, doing sales there. And Steve, being very entrepreneurial, very smart, right? Street smart. Said, I could do this. And he talked to this kid, Brian, and convinced Brian to start their own moving company, I think called All in the Family or something like that. And they hit the ground running. They got like full page, double page ads in all these yellow pages in the area, and their phone would not stop. That's literally how it worked, right? Now you'd have to make sure you weren't losing your pants paying too much for these ads, but your phone would ring, because that was the way. And their phone was ringing, and they were doing all this business, and they had this warehouse, which Gentle Giant is out of now in Dobbs Ferry, New York. Dobbs Ferry, Tarrytown.
Okay.
By the Washington Irving Boat Club. Is that Tarrytown? It's Tarrytown, yeah, right over by the train tracks. And I went to go visit a couple times, and and I didn't really look inside, but it looked like they had some things going on, like they were busy. And Steve would come by once in a while. The Yonkers Honda where I was working, and he'd have bought him a Mercedes, and he was like, I know you're really good at sales, and I'm always in a 3-piece suit. I'm always dressed to impress. Not right now, obviously, but I was at the time always dressed to impress him. And he would be like, you should come on board. Like, we should, be cool to have you as a partner. Not really pushing me. And then as time went on, he was pushing me.
But did he want you to come on as a partner to handle that part of the business, to handle sales, like bringing in more business?
Yeah, bringing, like, generating more business and handle sales. And I felt pretty confident that I could, do that. But he had painted this really beautiful picture of what this company looked like. And I said, well, look, I think I wanted to go on vacation, take my father to the Dominican Republic. I'd never been on vacation like that with my father outside of the area. Maybe to Canada when he was driving a bus when I was younger, but like I hung with him when I worked, but never on vacation. They had told me no, and I gave him like 2-3 weeks notice. I hadn't taken vacation that year, and I always did what I was supposed to do, and I was just like, and I was like, I'm giving you my 2 weeks notice.
Same for me.
Right, which is not normal for me to do, but I think that I was just like, if I can't go on vacation with my father, it's the only vacation, like, I'm entitled to a vacation once a year.
Yeah.
And great dealership, I think it was just timing, and maybe the boss was going through something, and I loved that. I missed that place, actually, but I left there, and I went on vacation. I don't know how the hell that's fucking relevant to the story, but I was going somewhere with it.
Yeah, that's how you ended up leaving there and...
Okay, yeah, so I went, so exactly, yeah, so thank you. See? Great.
Works out.
Yeah, so I left, and Steve approached me, and I was just like, all right, I could do this. Like, we negotiated some terms of like, I think I said I'll bring on 2 trucks, and I'll also give you like $15,000. And I'll come in and, I thought I negotiated a good deal for myself, because a third of the business for bringing on 2 trucks that are going into my own business anyway, I will essentially own a third of those trucks, technically. I'm giving myself, 3 partners all split those trucks. So I'm really only giving 2/3 of a truck away to each guy, and 15 grand or 20 grand or something like that. And that was what we agreed on. And, I said, I want to work in the business a little bit before I learn a little bit about it. So I'm going to go out on the trucks, I'm going to come around the warehouse, and I did that. We hadn't technically signed anything yet, but I had already purchased 1 truck and gave him the 15, 20 grand, whatever it was. And as I'm like watching the business, there's a lot, I'm like, this is interesting, but it's not super professional. These guys it's like very hood, and and it looked like it was messy. So I started to go up to the warehouse. When I got to the warehouse, there was like, he had a beautiful dog, pit bull, that he kept up there, sweet girl, sweet dog, but she was crapping all over the warehouse. There were leaks, people's stuff in the middle of the floor, just shrink wrapped, and it looked like a dungeon, right? The warehouse up there at the time. I don't know what it looks like now, but it's not. And there's dog shit all over the place.
Yeah.
And there was, come to find out later on, people were complaints, there were BBB issues, there were lawsuits, there were things he didn't tell me about. It was a mess. All he was doing was booking jobs and doing them and
Getting more.
kicking the problems to the side.
Yeah.
You know, you got a problem, whatever. I'm making more money. I'm making more money. I'm making more money. You know, that piles up. So I went to him and I approached him and I said, hey, look, I can come on board here, and I'm sure I can fix some of these issues, right? And find a better system and address some of these complaints and work things back to a good place. I'm like, but this is not the picture you painted for me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, very different than what we discussed. And he had said to me, he was angry or whatever his reasoning was, well then don't buy it. No, I don't need you. And I said, okay, give my money back. And, you know, interestingly enough, and I'm grateful that he did, because he's not the type of person to do that. He gave me back pretty much every single dollar. It took him a little bit of time, but he's not the type to give back money.
Yeah.
And it just never has been. Never. But maybe my relationship with his brother at the time, and also a lot of mutual friends we knew that I hung out with, and he was just like, you know, maybe he had respect for me that he didn't have. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what it was, but you know, I'm a friend of the family, I guess. So
Yeah.
that's possibly a reason for Steve to do that. But in Steve's defense, I've never seen him do it. Anyway.
So I'm gonna stop you right there real quick, because you said something that I think is funny. When you brought up one of the other companies, but then also this company, that it was a lot of felons and a lot of criminals and whatever working there. I know that firsthand, because when I had gotten into some trouble myself, and my parents moved to Yonkers. Yonkers was supposed to be like the fucking saving grace of like getting me out the hood. Like, Yonkers, it was like, we're moving to Yonkers, you know?
Right. Meanwhile.
And when I came to Yonkers, the kids that I started hanging out with were no better than the kids I was hanging out with in the Bronx. But they all worked at a moving company here in Yonkers.
What's it called? Over here in
I
Yonkers.
don't even want to put them
No,
on.
I know what it is. I'm putting them on blast. Everybody's
I don't
even
even
on
want to
blast.
put them on blast.
Oh god, not Runge, not Ron's, the other one.
Smart move.
Smart move. That's it. Yeah, that was it.
So it was the same shit, bro. It was literally like it was literally like the dudes that I was smoking with, getting high with, drinking with. We put on a t-shirt and we went to work.
Yep.
That's literally I'm talking about like we were smoking in the truck. We were dragging people's mattresses through the mud. I mean, it was crazy. So now when I hear you say that, I'm like, shit, well, this like, and I feel like that's the perception for the majority of moving companies.
Well, here's the reason why everybody wants a cheap. This is I mean, like, it sounds so cliche because, like, yeah, you know, you're gonna push not hiring a cheap mover because you're not cheap. Well, because I pay top of dollar to our guys, because the alternative, right, even for me when I was younger, was like, yeah, I was willing to take less money if I wasn't, you know, if I wasn't accustomed to making more money, right? If that makes any sense.
Yeah,
like,
of course.
you know, you can't take somebody who's working at McDonald's and throw them on the floor at Ruth's Chris and expect to get the same level of service. Maybe with training and time and rehabilitation, and everybody can change, but you know, you're asking people to lift heavy furniture and break their backs. And if you're not paying them top dollar for it, you're going to get what you're going to get.
Yeah.
That's it. There's no way around that. There's no secret sauce to get somebody who's willing to break their back for minimum wage. And if news for you can't. Well, I'll find a company that's paying them more money but it's charging less. Well, who in their right mind is going to pay somebody $30 an hour, $40 an hour, and make no profit to do your move?
Yeah.
They don't exist. If anybody does, they won't be in business long enough. They can probably fuck things up anyway. So it's interesting because that is just, it's purely a service logistical business. You're paying for service or you're paying for logistics. And if you cut on price, you're not cutting on material costs. You're cutting on service and logistics. That's it.
But the thing that I don't understand is that, like, when you said that during the old times, when you first came into the business, this was solely based off of a fucking Yellow Pages ad, right? So now, in today's modern day society world, fucking 2023, where there's Google reviews, there's fucking BBB, all those things to verify that. How are these people, like the company that I work for, that I know is still in business, how are they still in business?
How much presence do they have online? Is your answer. You have a company, and I can relate this to the real estate industry. You have realtors, and I've talked about this, and I'm sure you've heard it. You have realtors that are dinosaurs. They have a referral base like no one else.
Yeah.
Right? All their business over the last 10, 15, 20 years has come back from repeat business referrals and recommendations. But no matter how much of a client base that realtor has built, right? Same thing with movers. Eventually, over time, what's going to happen is people that are dominating the market space for social media and online presence will filter out the dinosaurs because the referrals are going to come from their kids, their estate, their grandkids when they sell their property. And who are they going to reach out to? The realtor or the mover that they found on social media or on the internet, right? So I just don't think the answer to your question, without getting into like this whole, I told you already, with this whole crazy thing, is that you don't find much present there. They do a lot of state work, social services, DSS,
100%.
and they get and being a Yonkers company, they get referrals from people that have used them in the past. And I wouldn't say that they're horrible. I would just say that you have people that are okay with eating steak from McDonald's when they have like a steak special, and then you have people that will go to the diner, and then you have people that will go to like Outback, and then you have people that want to eat it with Chris, and that's really just the difference,
But see, you brought something up there that it's the same thing, right? Like in any business, we have a business standard, or at least we should, right? And I know a lot of people don't. Like, it got to a point when I came into the business where I had no interest in, after a certain amount of time, dealing with rentals. I don't want to know nothing about a rental. I didn't care who it was because they were so much work and so much of a headache for such little pay. So I just stopped doing them. But I would imagine, and it's because I work there, they get a lot of those state jobs where I would be on a truck. When I came into the warehouse, they'd say, oh, you're going to go to 123 Smith Street. And we already knew that 123 Smith Street was yeah, exactly. And we already knew how we were going to handle that move because it was like an eviction or something. The marshals called us in to like junk it. So what I'm saying is, as an employee of that company,
that's the standard.
How do you then say, okay, today I'm gonna
100%
handle an eviction
100%.
move,
how do I
and then go move a multi-million-dollar home in Scarsdale?
You have to have you have to have a standard for operations, whether you're moving, the richest person in the world, or if somebody's paying you, your standard is the same because it doesn't make it takes away the complicated. How do you know? Oh, I wrapped this one a little bit more because this is a nicer, but it's nice. It's all perspective. That may not be nice to me, but it may be worth $30 million. Not $30 million.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? So how do you now you want movers to be appraisers also?
Yeah.
Right. So no, it doesn't. That's a really valid point. And that is, we're putting everybody on blast, including New York State, right? Yeah. New York State's policy for Department of Social Services for women who've been in domestic violence situations or whoever it is that they're paying to help them out. Their policy for a lot of services that they help them out are, get me 3 quotes and we'll take the cheapest one. They pay the cheapest one. Mm. So how do now you get to really interesting situations where we don't really bother with those. Why? Because we're going to be priced out. No, I can't. I'm not going to send you guys that are going to just throw your stuff on a truck and not wrap it. Yeah. The only way to do that is to take the job for $400, $500, $600, whatever it is that they're paying, $800, $1,000, I don't know, and get it on the truck and get it off as quickly as possible. Try to do 5 or 6 of those, or 3 or 4 of those jobs a day. Send 8 guys in the house and have them run them out like bullet in a china shop. Run it to the truck, and like. I guess people that are in a struggling situation or that are in desperate need and don't have the financials, that works for them. But I'm not interested in those jobs.
So, do you think that standard was something
Is that one of those things you hear at nighttime?
Yeah. Do you think that standard was something that, because for me it was something that developed over time, like?
Oh, absolutely.
Was that the same for you, where it was
Yeah,
like, you know what, I'm not gonna take these kind of jobs anymore. I'm not gonna, not that it lowered the standard of work that you did, but the type of jobs.
No,
that
it
you
did
took.
lower the standard of work.
Oh, did it?
We tried to be appraisers. I tried to convince movers to figure out, all right, in this type of furniture, maybe you won't spend as much time on this type. Like, you know, and I tried a lot of different, I mean, we started as a 5-star mover at the beginning with the last company, went down to like a 1-star mover, pulled it back up to like a 4-star mover, ended up where I was a negative 2-star mover at the end. Like, you know, and my best, the thing that I can learn from that I learned from that, we just talked about, is you cannot pay guys minimum wage to ask them to lift heavy furniture.
Yeah.
I wouldn't do it. You wouldn't do it. This gentleman wouldn't do it. People, you know, like no one that is not desperate, right, or has a reason to want to be flying under the radar, or, you know, working, getting paid cash or something like that, and, you know, just won't be able to get hired anywhere else, unfortunately. You know, or guys that feel like that's the maximum ceiling that they'll ever be able to make, right?
Yeah.
Because of their mentality or whatever, you know, you're not going to get people. The thing is, moving is a very emotional experience for people, for a lot of people. You know, maybe for me or you, not so much, right? But you have a family, or you have a lost loved one, you got divorced, or you lost your husband, you're retiring, husband and wife, they lived in a house with their kids for 30 years, and now they're moving. All that is a very emotionally driven experience, where it's just, where you have to have people in there that are capable of understanding the human psyche a little bit. I mean that.
Yeah.
You know, my guys aren't psychologists, but, you know, they can make someone can spot when someone feels uncomfortable about something and make them feel comfortable. And that's what the foreman really trained on, right?
Yeah.
That's what the foreman specifically, because then the rest is up for them to show their guys that, right? But the foreman are really showed that, and that you're not going to get from paying a guy $18 an hour, $70 an hour, even as a foreman, 20. Some of these companies, even the better ones, are paying $18 an hour to their foreman.
But I also think that also has to do with the fact that that's something that can't necessarily be taught, period. I just had this conversation with somebody the other day where I was trying to explain to them, like, you know, I think that entrepreneurship is over glamorized right now. I think that right now we're in a time where, like, everyone talks about, like, go start your own business, you know, and talks about all the great things behind it, which I'm not saying they're not. But no one talks about the other flip side of the coin, where it's like, when you first start, you're everything. You're the marketing guy, you're the CEO, you're the customer service, you're the HR. You fill all of those roles, right? And nobody really talks about that. But what you're talking about, right? It's the same thing for our industry. That comes with time. That comes with on-the-job training, where your foreman is able to know a certain dynamic. Okay, these people are in a state situation where they just lost somebody and they're moving. These things are sentimental to them. Same thing for us. I just took a listing last week where I knew coming into it where it's a divorce situation. So now I gotta put my divorce therapist hat on going into this listing appointment. And that's not something you learn in school, and it's on the job training experience.
A lot of it, yeah. You know, I think we had gotten lucky where, you know, I just had a relationship with somebody who had that understanding when I first got started back up again. I had that ability, and then working with them on the truck, and then showing them some things, and then once they're developed, then you bring on another person that's going to be your second foreman, and you put him with the old foreman, and then he starts to learn those behaviors through them. So yeah, a ton of it is on the job training. I think that's everywhere. is that these psychological things that we're talking about are things that you would need to develop. But there is some element of like explaining to people like how that you talk about, for example, point out to guys when they're new, like watch when you pull up to a customer's house. A lot of times you'll see them staring out the window in anticipation.
Yeah.
They're nervous, right? Can't help it. Even if they think you're the best mover in the world, they can't help it.
Yeah.
They're just, it's anxiety, they're moving. So like one of the things that we like to do is in our software, we send them a text message when we leave the warehouse. It says, we're on the way, we'll be there in the next amount of time. Click this link to follow the truck on the way there. So they can literally, like an Uber, click the link and watch the truck driving to their house. They also get a call, right, when we're half an hour away. So it's little things like that, starting off the day where there's communication, right, with people to, let them know in that phone call, just want to let you know we're going to have a great day. I've already reviewed the call you had with the office, watch that video chat with the office, have a full understanding of what's going on, but when we get there, we'll speak a little bit more and make sure we address any concerns you have. Today's going to be an awesome day. Like, starting off right, can set the precedent. So, like, little things like that, and then the rest they evolve and adapt and learn from throughout their career.
Yeah. So, obviously, I am heavily involved in a lot of different areas of our market and in our industry, period. And part of a lot of different associations and just a part of a lot of different groups and so on. And your name, your company always comes up all the time. I hear it all the time. And my question is, what do you think got you guys to that point? Was it completely social media? Was it, what was it that got you guys to that point?
I think it's definitely social media for sure. Support from, and you've heard me say this before, from the real estate community. I don't think that there is a more supportive community that I've ever been a part of. That's been my experience, right? Some people may have a different perspective on it, but for me, I had gotten a lot of love and support from the real estate community. I don't advertise to the general public, but social media, without a doubt. I think what had happened was I started making these wing reviews and these overrated, underrated videos, collaborating. We definitely did. We did a wing review, right? We did. And what happens, and what I believe, and what I talk to people about, is the power of collaborations.
100%.
Right? People that are following you in your office. It was great because it was something you hadn't done before. It was a chance for us to connect and hang out, and it was just cool. Yeah. It's good content, right? But also the behind the scenes part of it, and which I push for people to understand all the time, is everyone that follows you, that you've met in your journey in the real estate community, people that are in your office, people on your team, people you used to work with, your client base, everyone that's following you now sees me. So what happened is I started making these videos with different people in the industry, and they, a lot of people follow each other. And then all of a sudden you'd see me here with John, you'd see me here with this person, you'd see me here with that person, right? And then they would check in and they would see, oh, he did a couple more before, and they would look at it, and then people were like, wow, he's doing stuff with a lot of real estate agents. Like, people must trust him. Let's follow him, right? And they're like, oh, that was funny, and it just kind of mushroomed from there. I think I found it interesting because I didn't get a lot of views and a lot of huge exposure push from Instagram or TikTok or Facebook from these wing reviews.
Yeah.
But people heard about them.
Yeah.
There were people that I would meet that I was going to shoot with, and they were like, oh yeah, my buddy, he's not in the industry, but he follows you, and he was like, oh, you're going to do this with the wing guy, and it's humbling, but it's also like, I didn't understand it because there wasn't huge, it wasn't like, some reels I made being retarded, not a PC word, but whatever. Some reels I made being ridiculous, were just, did so much better. But the wing thing, really seems to a lot of people knew about it.
So, do you think that that now adds more pressure to your business? And what I mean by that is this, right? Like, your social media presence is what essentially got you going, got more and more people starting to trust you and refer you, right? And now that we're in this social media driven society that we're in, and you're in a service-based business.
About exposure, worry about exposure.
Exactly. Does that now play a, like, does it now put more pressure to make sure that the standard of service stays at that high because of how much exposure you have?
Not at all.
Okay.
Not at all. Because I don't, and here's the reason why. I don't have we have, our policy is very simple, no one leaves unhappy. It sounds, yeah, right, that's impossible, I don't know. It's impossible for you if it's impossible. If you say it's impossible, then it's impossible. But it's not impossible, because what it means is, if something goes wrong and I have to give somebody back every dollar and remove, I do it. They don't leave unhappy. I mean, if I give you back every dollar and remove and you're still unhappy, we'll try to give you a hug. At that point, I don't really know what else I got left for you, but it rarely ever, like we do these video reviews that you see, and we know the video reviewer is coming and it holds us accountable, and the harder we work, the better the review, the more business we can get. That in itself, like, forget about the fact that the review is great content for people to see and the exposure is incredible. The review holding us accountable does so much for customer service, because every guy that's on that job knows that review is coming.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe wants to be thanked by name, which sometimes they do get thanked by name.
Yeah.
And we do these video chats before we do, as our way of viewing what's in the client's house, and that video chat is recorded, and the customer gets a copy upon the request, emailed to them. So we're held accountable there. Accountability.
Yeah.
People don't like accountability, but when there is accountability, you're less likely to fuck things up.
You get to throw a red flag and go back and check the tape.
Correct.
Yeah.
And when you're accountable, people are less likely to fuck shit up if they're being held accountable for what they do. Recording is a wonderful thing. Recording,
100%.
So no, I'm not worried, because our level of service is extraordinarily high. I don't, and I say to clients sometimes, well, I've heard people even people in the industry, not many, but a couple I've heard of, oh, well, you're expensive. Don't hire me.
Yeah.
I don't want, if it's somebody who's looking for a cheap move, I'm not interested.
Yeah.
It's not like I'm like, oh, but I really want it. Like, no, I'm not even interested in that client.
Yeah.
Someone that has that mindset that they're looking for the cheap, doesn't say everybody has a budget. Everybody's looking to save money where we can. But somebody's on mindset, I want, this is the area where I'm going to cut the most amount of money, right? I don't know.
But you know what always happens though, and I know this from my perspective too, is that when you get the client that's looking for the cheapest guy, or that's looking for a discount, or that's looking for a bargain, and you bend on that,
It's a headache.
it ends up being the most difficult client, the most difficult transaction.
Or unappreciative, or just like there was no. And look, I don't need to. As a business owner, I think we should all be appreciative of people for giving us their business. That is true, but there's also this element like you want to surround yourself with people that are going to make you want to come to work.
Yeah.
If somebody paid me, a lot of money, but it was miserable to fucking work for them, I wouldn't want to go back to work. And it's the same thing here. If as these movers, or for me, if somebody's paying me, even a lot of money, but if you're paying me a little bit of money and it's not a pleasure, it's not, it's miserable to work with you. I don't know that. It's interesting, because a lot of times I had somebody say this to me. Yeah, people that have tons of money, they're just miserable. Even if that is not my experience with moving. People that are willing to pay for a move, and blue collar people that pay a little bit more for a move because they want a good move. They are the people that are doing cartwheels on that video review at the end about how amazing. Yeah, I'm not even kidding.
Yeah.
It's interesting, but I think it's because for moving, I think it's because it is such an emotionally driven experience that when you can make someone have not only an okay day, but when someone can be like, oh, today was a fun day, like I had these guys who were great.
Yeah.
Like people are just like, what the fuck happened?
Yeah.
Like I heard moving was difficult.
Yeah.
You know,
So when you're doing it yourself, it is.
Right. Or when you
Yeah.
hire, you know, another trick and like whatever. I mean, it's all about educating, right? It's just why does a move have to be very long? Why not put an extra guy or two? Not again, you don't want them in each other's way because you don't want to slow them down and cost you more money. But why not have an extra mover there if you can and turn what's going to be an 8-hour day into a 5-hour day?
Mm-hmm.
You just made somebody's life that much easier. 3 hours extra in their day to get settled in their home, to breathe, to look around, to fix shit, whatever it is.
Yeah.
You know, make it a shorter day for them. Like that in itself is just like a mind blowing way of like making things easier for people. You know, just make it shorter.
So now that we got all the pleasantries out the way and the cool,
tough questions,
the cool business stuff. No, the real shit. Cause that's what I like to talk about. It's real shit. So in a year, and I want to say not even just a year, in the past 2 years, where on paper I've probably had the best and most successful years of not just my career, of my life. I've made more money in the last 2 years than I've ever made, period. But behind the scenes was one of my roughest years. On a personal level, family shit, you know, financial shit that didn't expect to happen, so on and so forth. And I attribute a lot of that to not knowing what it really takes to be an entrepreneur, because I think that again I want to put emphasis on how difficult this path is in reality when especially when you're just getting started, because even though I'm 8 years in the business, I still feel very new in some areas. I still feel like even though I've sold X amount of houses, I still feel very new in certain areas, right? Because it's new levels, new devils. You level up. So what have been some of the setbacks or the hard parts or your most challenges as an entrepreneur in this space?
I think the most challenging thing is, I think somehow this ties into ego. Is just remembering what's important. I think is like remembering that, you know, at the end of the day, like I had this conversation with my girlfriend the other day, like it was something about her, you know, like having an identity, you know, and doing her own thing as far as work is concerned and stuff like that, because she's very motivated and driven to do a lot of her own stuff. And you know, and I said to her, but like, what do you think would happen if like the New York mover failed? Like if I wasn't the New York mover, right? Like would I not have an identity? And I think that's what was like the biggest challenge, was separating. Was not that I didn't separate myself. Like my business became me, and it took precedent over what was important. And what I mean is important is like times with friends, times with family. You know, not dealing with an issue and giving my significant other the attention that I should have provided to them, because that's what really matters. And that's a challenge in itself, because, you know, you think, well, if I don't handle this, like I can make a little bit more money, and like, but like I can always make a little bit more money. There will never be a situation where if I don't do something extra, that I will have had an opportunity to get that out of the way so I could have made more money. Like that's endless, you know? So like the whole expression, like life is a journey, life is a marathon, it's not a sprint. You know, and that's the same thing, like running this business it's a marathon, right? It's not a sprint. We're not sprinting to get anywhere, you know, because there's always a new plateau. It's like you said, there's always something new, a new hurdle. You know, and I lost my mom, I lost my dad. I countless hours, more time and days and months that I could have spent with them that I didn't, you know, and that I put this first with my last business, you know, and I had a lot of regrets for that. And there were people in my life, friends, significant others, people that I put this first, you know, regret some of those, don't regret some of those. But you know, but no, but the right thing to do is to, you know, I think we always have to, you have to be I need to be spiritually grounded.
Yeah.
Because if I'm running based off money and greed and all that other stuff, and like that never works out. That never works out to make you happy in the end anyway. It might work out where you'll be like fucking miserable and rich, but like, then what's the point? Isn't our objective, isn't our primary purpose to be happy?
Yeah, I think what you're referring to there is the cliche of the work-life balance, and I think that we hear that shit all the time, and I think that I don't think that there's ever a balance. I think that there's always a tipping of the scale in each direction, and you have to have the awareness to say, I'm doing a little bit too much work right now. I gotta hone it back in. I think it's, for me anyway, I think it's very difficult to completely balance the two every single day.
Well, I hear people talk about work-life balance, and I think it's just boundaries.
Yeah.
That's it. For me, set boundaries. This is what I'm going to do. This is where it stops. Right? Now, if there's a truck that flips over on the highway and fucking takes out an oil tanker, that's a different story.
Yeah.
Right? But otherwise, what can be so pressing? It's ego. It's a fear that I'm going to lose something or not going to get something that I can get. It's going to drive me to not stick to my boundaries, right? And then do something that I said I wasn't going to do. So I find like, you know, we set boundaries. This is what the time that I want to allocate for family and friends, and this is the time that I'm allocating for work. And you know, like I don't know if I was reading it or I saw it. It was like they were talking about like Jeff Bezos and like Elon Musk, or like the Jeff Bezos schedule, for example. Like, you know, that he wakes up and he'll like mosey around the house till like 9 o'clock in the morning and read the paper and hang out with his kids or like do whatever. Like that's what he does.
Yeah.
And then from like 9 to 10 he goes to the gym. And then from like 10 to 11, because that's when you have your brain is working at the peak, or from like 10 to like 2 he'll have business meetings. And then from 2 to 5 he'll answer emails. And then like he'll eat dinner and he'll go home and that's it.
Yeah.
This is a guy that's running the fucking Amazon.
Yeah. Yeah.
He can do that, but I can't do it as a mover
of course.
You know, a mover from Yonkers.
Yeah.
Like, it's just balance. You know, not balance, it's just boundaries. Excuse me, boundaries. Yeah, I think boundaries is.
So, one last thing I want to ask you. You know, the reason why I put this podcast together was many reasons, but one of them being that I am a firm believer that God, Allah, whatever you want to call it, puts all of the right people in your life that you need for everything, and you're never gonna be in a place where you can't necessarily handle your current situation. And I've been blessed to have met some of the dopest people in the world, and has literally like, this person got me through this door, this person helped me with this situation, and so on and so forth. And I think that doesn't really get talked about much these days, because there's so much wanting to say like, I got it out the mud, I'm self-made, I did it myself, and so on. And what has your experience been like, as far as whether it was someone that lended a helping hand in your business, or that gave you an opportunity, or what has that been like for you?
Yeah, you know, I talked about this before. I would not be where I am today without the real estate industry. You know, there are some people that, you know, that I can think of when I first got started, that I first tried to connect with on you know, social media, that were very supportive. You know, Linda Lyons was one of them. We were talking about Jess Sigmund before. You know, and like Compass.
Shout out to Jess Sigmund.
And Compass is a tough group. Like, you know, not that, I mean, Compass is a great group, but they're a tough group.
Yeah.
And I don't think I would have been accepted by the Compass community had not Jessica helped with that, because she is Compass. She's, you know, a team of Compass. So like, you know, they're at Minedale. was another, there were a lot of people that I met through social media that were very supportive, that like took a chance on me and did, you know what I mean? But they're everyone. I mean, there are people that I've never met, that I've connected with on Facebook, that recommend me. And I was still dawning on me the other day, like I wish I had enough time to pick up the phone and call every single person that I never met, that I'll be like, okay, I didn't hear from them. I'll have to look up, I'm friends with that realtor on Facebook.
Yeah.
But I never met them. Like we've maybe messaged a few times, I've liked a few things. And I'd like to be able to call them. I wish I could. Maybe I could figure out a system or when I figure out a process for where that's part of my deal, because I think that's more important than anything else. Is reaching out and saying thank you. We do. I mean, we do in the sense where, like, at the job, we do the move, we get the video review, we have them chat with the agent, we post it in our story, we put thank you there. But I think a nice call to show appreciation, because I can't say anyone in particular, but everyone in the real estate industry has been, like I said, even inspectors now are very, very grateful to them, and very, I wouldn't be here on my own. I didn't step in shit.
Yeah.
I got supported.
For sure.
I got supported.
Well, my brother, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for sharing with us. Let them know where they can find you, where to reach you.
I'm not wearing the hat.
Oh, how did you not wear the hat, bro?
At the NY Mover. It's the New York Mover, abbreviated at the NY Mover. Please send me a follow. Send me a message. Tell me you found me here. I'll send you a follow back and we'll connect.
Sounds good. Thank you, brother. Appreciate you.